It's been cool to reconnect with everyone and get this thing rolling and revisit that stuff. It's a lot of great memories and definitely the most fun that I ever had making music was with these guys. And so beyond what we've been doing, we haven't really had any talks about it. But like, if we wanted to do a show, maybe we should if these kids are down.
I guess the first place to start really is just how long this idea of documentary, getting the album back out there, when did that kind of first start to develop? How long? I know this has kind of been quite a long process for you guys, right? A bit of a long kind of train to get back to this point of getting on streaming services and all that stuff. Dallin, why don't you start us off? Like, tell me about, the kind of inklings of this.
Oh man, well, I guess it started 20 something years ago whenever Matt Glass, our drummer here, would always have a camera on him in some capacity, and we would just film everything that we were doing. Really, I don't know that we had a reason to, because like YouTube wasn't a thing. We were just filming everything that we were doing. I don't really know why we did, but I guess for the sake of a future documentary, and now here we are. So. Matt Glass is psychic, everybody. Happy to announce. Thank you, Matt.
I know. Yes. You're thinking of the number 14 right now.
You're right. I had it written
See?
down. I'm not going to show you, but I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt, what was the thinking there? Was it just a case of, hey, this is experiencing fun times, let's make sure we remember it? I mean, simple as that?
I think I think we were all kind of Beatles anthology fans. So there was always like part of me that was like, well, if things work out right, someone's got to have footage.
We're
So
making
I
our
just
own
kept filming everything.
making our own anthology before anything before we had written any songs.
Yeah, exactly. Before we even had fans, we were like, no, no, people, just in case.
Not enough bands start with the documentary first. I feel that's the way forward. That's the latest development we all
It's
need.
it's a choice. It's a business model.
Yeah. It's hey, we're into new business models. That's the way we live these days. It's all good. Well, I mean, that's kind of the interesting thing is being able to have this time capsule there because I think what's been great about specifically seeing the reaction since the album went back on streaming and when you guys were teasing all this stuff out there is how this band and the following behind it hasn't really gone away. I mean, there's still, all these monthly listeners, you can see all the whether it's stats or just the reaction on social media. That's got to be a lovely, lovely thing to see that if anything, the following for the band has grown while you've been away. That's quite a rare thing, but it's got to be really quite gratifying to see how delighted people were by these developments.
It's cool. Yeah. It's also really what's the word I'm looking for? Validating. Because we collectively spent a lot of time and effort and on that project and touring it around, and we sort of reached this plateau that a lot of bands reach, and that next step it just never really came. So having fans find it on their own over time and sort of breathing life into it and keeping the embers burning, even if they're really low, it's been cool to see like this work that we've done have these little moments where fans kind of find it and discover it. And even a song a couple years ago had a little moment on TikTok, which is really cool to see. But yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a funny thing. I mean, I guess Dallin, you must have seen it kind of up front because when you'd play a few songs at IDK shows and everything, and you'd see that kind of visceral reaction. But Michael and Matt, how aware were you of this kind of bubbling community that was building around this songs? Did it take you by surprise, or were you kind of keeping an eye on how this was growing a little bit?
I don't, I guess I wasn't fully aware of how many people still knew about the band. I assumed a lot of the fan. I think a lot of our newer fans, younger fans, come from Dallin. I think probably from what he's done with music over the years. I think that brought in kind of a new audience that looked into some of the stuff maybe he was involved with earlier on. But I was aware on some level because I would just have random people reach out to me from time to time, email me or message me and be like, hey, where can I get this? Where can I get these songs? And people would upload them to YouTube and things. And so I don't think we even know how it got out there initially. but there was sort of like a black market for it, I think, and people were sharing it with each other because obviously it wasn't available for streaming, really, some of the old stuff anyway. So I was somewhat aware, but I still don't know to the extent people are aware of this band, but uh, certainly more now than 20 years ago, I would bet,
Pro
which is strange.
probably more than I think we'd like to acknowledge too. Like these fans, they know everything that we've ever done somehow, going all the way back to when we were like 15 years old and writing songs that were not good by any measure, but they find them and they post them online and they exist and they're out there. But I don't think any of us are necessarily going to assist folks trying to find those numbers, but yeah, they're out there.
When we were getting ready to release Nuclear Winter, I was like, oh, we should put like some of these old B-sides on there that nobody's heard. It's going to be really exciting. And then I go online and I'd be like, no, they're out there already somehow. I'm like, I don't know how, but okay, whatever.
That band that cannot produce rarities because the fans have found them. It's a nice
Well, the
position
thing
to be
is,
in.
we probably have more rarities too. Like, I think we keep finding things buried in hard drives, and we don't
Mm.
even, at least I don't even remember recording some of these things, but we must have had, a microphone going, or like you said, like we mentioned earlier, a video camera going at all times, it seems, because we have a lot of different versions of the same song, live version, alternate versions, and things like that. And I know a lot of them are out there, but I bet you there's a few things that aren't yet, which is really strange, again, for a young band to have so many different recordings, a lot of the same song. But, I guess that, can serve a purpose for super fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mike reminded me that around here somewhere is a cassette tape recorder that I have of just some random practice session that we did. This was probably like it must have been early 2000s or something, but the tape recorder was stolen from our high school. I think we stole three or four of those so that we could learn like that was the sort of the genesis of learning how to record like these giant, you'd have them in the library, and I think we took two or three of them over a period of time and never returned them.
I don't know
Hey,
what you're talking about. I've
they
never
went to better
done anything
use.
illegal.
They went to better use hypothetically if that ever should happen. They went to a
Yeah,
better place for sure.
if
No
anyone
one
at
can
our
get
high
mad now.
school starts asking questions, you can edit this part out.
Can you imagine if they still are on that level of technology today? Like, actually, we were looking for those the other day. We
Hey,
need
we're gonna
those
need
tape
that back.
recorders. Yeah, we're really going to need that for the next time we're using tapes in the school. Um, Tell me a little bit about actually finally getting the album out there, because I guess the lovely thing is that this is very much an independent spirit. I mean, setting up an own label effectively to kind of put this out. I mean, there's
Yeah.
challenges to that, obviously, but it's that's got to be quite freeing and open things up in a lot of ways eventually.
Yeah, the biggest challenge was really just how to divvy up streaming royalties, which, as we all know, is where the big money is in music. But doing it the right way and making it so it was transparent and each of us can see that okay, this is all getting split up. It was really more bureaucracy than anything else that was the biggest barrier to getting this stuff streaming online. But Spotify finally figured out how to make that doable relatively easy. So we were able to just split everything equally four ways and put it online, and then some computer somewhere takes care of it all. So we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's always nice. That's always and great to again, as I mentioned, great to just see the reaction. But it's just interesting how it's that record in particular, of the couple of records that are out there that like people were just so hyped and people seem to really gravitate towards these Happiest Nuclear Winter songs. And I just it must be nice as well to have kind of lived in that world again for a little minute while you're preparing for this release, because I know all you guys, in whatever degree, whatever musical projects you are working on, it's going to affect it a little bit, right? Being able to go back into your past and see what it was like for you back then, does it make you change your outlook for how you want to do songwriting moving forward?
It's really cool to look back on because like it was pretty ambitious for a bunch of kids that didn't know the technicals really, it was all very figured out as we went, and it's a pretty ambitious project to make a post-apocalyptic you know concept album in my dad's garage on a 8-track tape recorder. But Matt Glass right here kind of took the helm of figuring out the technology aspects of it all, and we figured it out. But going back and listening to it, it definitely makes me want to like aim higher creatively and like forget about rules, because we didn't know the rules back then and we weren't concerned about that stuff. We just wanted to make stuff that we found interesting or that excited us, and trying to get back to that can be a challenge sometimes, especially like when you've been doing it for so long. It's easy to lose that spark that got you started on this path in the first place. But
It's
having that
interesting.
stuff
Oh,
come
I'm sorry.
back kind of reignites. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
So sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'll go. He was going to say something great too. I can tell. Sorry.
I was just right there. I lost it.
Damn it. Um, I was just going to say that it's really nice to listen back to it because it's very sloppy, and I feel like the longer you are in the business, the more you want to like make it perfect, and you're like trying to make everything sound good and perfect, and then you have this record that seems to resonate with certain people, and it's not perfect in any way. It's very sloppy. The beats are not very tight, and there's
What's a
noises in the
metronome?
background.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. Like it's just about like making it, putting your heart into it or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that that perfection isn't really the standard that you need to aim for. Especially like when technology is the way that it is, it's so easy to make a song technically perfect that sometimes people spend time going in and adding things like tape noise and skipping sort of glitchy stuff that we had to deal with naturally. And back then it was like this thing that we're trying to overcome, and now it's being inserted artificially. All this like little imperfection stuff that Matt's talking about. But yeah, it's weird how easy it is now to sort of fall into the grid. I guess if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I think with that record too, I think it's a good example of just kind of capturing the energy. And I think that's what ultimately what wins is, do people feel something from it? Can they feel the energy of like four people, in our case, four friends that shared similar sensibilities musically, but also our personalities and sense of humor. We kind of were all coming from a similar place. And I think all that matters. When you're working as a group, you can sense that. And I think that that's apparent, particularly on Happiest Nuclear Winter. It was kind of it wasn't our first release, but it was the first time where we kind of felt like, all right, we're a real band now. We kind of have a direction. We kind of know what type of stuff we like right now. And I just think all that goes into it. And the recordings are secondary, as evidenced by people enjoying the album, because it's not, wasn't professionally made. But I think it captures the essence of who we are and our relationship with each other. And that's not easy to do because you don't always get to make music with your friends.
I
So
think it's the first time too that we all collectively made music where there were people like in waiting to see what we were gonna do. Because we had made some recordings beforehand, and I think before Nuclear Winter came out, if I'm remembering correctly, we'd gotten to a point where we were selling out venues around like Salt Lake. Was that before Nuclear Winter, or was that like shortly after? I think
maybe, I think we were
at
kind
one
of,
point, some point, well, like we had fans for like the first time, and it was all sort of around this record, either before or after. So, uh, yeah, there wasn't really like expectations behind what we were doing, but we knew that people were going to hear this.
Yeah.
Uh, but besides just us.
Yeah, which is always nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting as well that you mentioned about the kind of ambition of it and bringing in wider concepts a little bit and stuff, because I always just find it so funny when we get to the stage now where we're looking back at anniversaries of records like this and records from around that time. This stands out as a rarity in terms of a band attempting something like that and bringing in story elements and stuff like that. Whereas now, if you don't do that, it's almost weird. Do you know what I mean? It's so funny how just all these
Yeah.
years later, it's completely flipped and every band wants to have their look. And I love that. Like I've always loved that aspect and been really drawn to that when bands do that. But I just think it's so interesting when you look back into this kind of time period when this was out there, and it's a handful of records in that. I guess my question really is like, what was it that drew you guys to that idea of, you know what, we actually do want some kind of theming around what we're going to produce
It
here.
had to be like Sergeant Pepper or something because all of us were huge Beatles fans, and the Beatles anthology was kind of the thing that sort of lit the fire in us to get the whole thing started in the first place. But yeah, concept records like Sergeant Pepper, I think were what started us on that path
And you
because
can
we had
hear,
started writing songs, but I don't think that that all being a concept started to form until we had already started it, you know? So like we started collecting songs and then the idea of making it a concept album came back, if I remember right.
I think so. That sounds
Mhm.
right. But you can look with some of the arrangements of the songs too. They're, you know, very Beatles-ish. Some of them, um, there's sort of like medley type songs. There's a few songs that are like the first part is entirely different than the second
Mhm.
half of the song.
Mhm.
I think we're all fans of that. That like, that's not something you hear very often. And so I think that's something that we wanted to try, maybe try to do our best impression of the Beatles or something, was probably an influence on some of the songwriting for sure. It's a strange album. I mean, having not listened to it for years and then going back and listening to it, um, it's strange. It's not something I could produce on my own, and I don't think any of us could do that on our own. It was really a collection of the four of us. This is what the four of us bring to the table, and this is what we got. I mean, it's almost like a jazz record in a lot of respects too, which is strange because I don't have a jazz background, and Dallin doesn't either, as far as I know. But Matt and Brian, the keyboard player, did have a jazz background, so you can hear their influence on it. And I'm here like writing jazz songs, and I don't know anything about jazz. Certainly at the time I didn't. So I thought that was kind of funny. We're just making jazz records over here too.
Little indie rock jazz garage
Yeah,
concept
yeah,
album.
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's
finally we
definitely
get the
true.
genre locked down. There it is.
There's one song in particular that what Mike was just talking about that I think really encapsulated that whole process. Everyone's a jerk but me. To this day is one of my favorite songs that Mike has written. But but that song is this whole journey that seems when you take a step back from it, it seems like it's disconnected, the verses from the choruses and everything else, but it all works so well together. And it's almost like a mashup of several different ideas into one song. But I love to this day, it's one of my favorite tracks that I've been a part of.
Amazing.
Thinking about Brian's solo on that song, I filmed everybody recording their parts for it. Cause I'm like, we'll make it like a music video of the live recording. And in the documentary, just going back and watching him do the solo, which was he had no rehearsal. Every time he would just play something, and like the one we used is like really awesome and like strange and the weirdest chords. And just watching him just be like, well, I don't know, and it's like this amazing thing. It's so cool to
The man
watch.
is a genius. The man is a genius. To this day, the most gifted piano player I've ever seen or performed with.
Amazing. Yeah, no,
Yeah, me
lightning in a
too.
bottle, those moments. That's so great when you have moments like that and players like that. It's funny you talk about, the kind of the jazz element of it all, and we've mentioned the Beatles here and stuff. A conversation I've had with Dallin on many occasions is the UK sensibility. Obviously I'm biased here, but like the UK influences that have shone through, Dallin's work with IDK and stuff is very, very clear. I think that's clear in the Brobecks too. So I mean, Matt and Michael, I mean, Beatles aside, I assume that there's probably a lot more shared favorites and shared influences with Dallin as well that have hailed from across the Atlantic too, right?
Oh yeah, I think we all grew up listening to British bands, and particularly at that time, we were all,
Britpop in the '90s was a big thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
we were big Blur fans and Oasis fans and Gomez fans,
Oh,
Supergrass,
oh,
just
love Supergrass. Yeah.
a lot of these, British, or at least, UK, I guess, bands we were really into. And I remember, do you remember the group? They might have been, I'm trying to think, I don't know what country they were from, but I think they were from the UK. They were called the Thrills. Do you remember the Thrills?
Oh,
I
they're
remember
Irish.
that name. Yeah.
Irish,
Irish.
yeah. They were from
They're,
Ireland and they sounded like they were on, Santa Cruz Beach or something. It was
yeah, it sounded
absolutely
like the
awesome.
Beach Boys.
Yeah, it was
And that's
great.
a band I had discovered around that same time too. And amazing debut record. I still
Mm,
listen to it, and it's great. And it didn't. I guess it didn't really work out for them, but that first record was really great. And
yeah.
so I just think we've always been a fan of that kind of Brit rock, uh, because it kind of seems like to me like there's a premium on the songwriting aspect with those bands and melody, and we were always big fans of that, I think.
Do you guys
Um,
remember a band called The Coral? Up in my
Yes.
oh,
lonely room.
Still going
Yeah,
over here, man. Still packing them in as
And
well.
are
they
they?
Absolutely.
were
Oh yeah.
great song. I think that's the only one of their songs that sort of made its way across the pond over here. I mean, they were doing a madness, but they were doing it well. You
Mm,
know, but
yeah.
being exposed to that kind of stuff was, yeah, definitely helped shape what we were doing because when we got started, uh, it was like post grunge '90s, so everyone was listening to what like Creed and well, that mechanic rock stuff. If you pull into a Jiffy Loop, whatever they're playing on the radio, like that's what they're playing. That's not what we were into at all. We were definitely left of what was middle of the road popular. So that stuff that we're all describing that helped shape how we wrote songs. That was not like the cool stuff to be listening to. If you were hanging out with girls or something, and you started talking about music, you started mentioning bands like Supergrass and The Coral, and they'd be like, "What? What do you do?" But yeah,
I
And
that
then
was
you
it.
play them in it for the money and you change their life. All right. That's
Yeah,
all I'm saying on
exactly.
Supergrass. All right. That is the one right there.
What's that?
Um,
There was one record in particular, Supergrass, that I remember we used to listen to all the time.
Life
And
on Other Planets.
yeah, I think that's it.
oh
Yeah,
wow.
is that the
Later
humping on the
period.
radio one, or
Interesting.
Yeah, and that
That's
was like a
Humping on
big
Your Stereo.
influence.
That's the
yeah, that's
self-titled
fun.
one.
That
I
was a
Okay.
big
adore Supergrass,
influence
man.
for us. We listened to that all the time. And we're
yeah,
also big Elvis Costello fans.
yeah.
I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, we just, I
It
probably
comes
like
through.
more.
No, it
Yeah.
comes through because I think we've always had a penchant for weirder sounds within even with kind of indie rock realms and stuff, and it feels like that's something that a lot of artists out in the States really gravitate towards, that letting your freak flag fly a little bit before it was
Yeah,
cool, It's nice.
yeah. Well,
I'm
I've
just
Yeah.
gonna
heard
say
it said
that.
that when it comes to rock and roll, although we may have done it first, y'all did it best.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll take that. I'll take
I just
that.
want to say. I just want to say super furry animals, and then that's it.
Yes,
They were
absolutely.
they
Good
Yeah.
were
Welsh
Influence
boys.
on
Welsh,
me.
right?
Yeah.
Are they
They were
Yep.
Welsh?
Welsh. They're a
Yep.
Welsh band. Phenomenal
Love
band. Saw them
Super. I
supporting
still
Oasis in
spin them on the radio.
2005. The best.
Yeah,
Absolutely
they're
the
I've
great.
best
got
boys.
a fire in my heart for you.
It's
They're one of
so
those
good.
bands too where you could go down a rabbit hole of all the B-sides that aren't released anywhere,
Mm,
and that's always
yeah.
fun to be like, oh, look at all these songs that are like better than some of the songs on the album, and they're like secret kind of. It's great.
Yeah, it's
Crazy.
good.
I love this. We're educating the Rock Sound audience in early
Well,
Yeah,
2000s
yeah.
indie from the UK.
Take
This is
notes,
good.
kids.
Check
I
Take
stuff
think
out. I
notes.
love it.
we might have been born in the wrong country. I think, yeah,
Maybe. Who
now that
knows? Maybe.
I'm reflecting, yeah, we probably should be British.
Should be
Packing
over
our bags
here.
and heading over that way before it's too late.
Well, I mean, hey, this is the question. This is this was going to be the inevitable question I'm going to have to ask because it's what the audience will be asking incessantly. This has clearly sparked something here a little bit. Now, first question, I suppose, is like, is there some of that archive stuff that we've mentioned already, some of that other stuff that's kicking around? Do you see that maybe getting polished up at some point or maybe getting some kind of release? I guess you've got the outlet now where if you were to find something you really loved, you could easily work up and put it out, right? But have you thought about that yet?
Yeah, we were talking about it the other day, even doing like a version of a record that's more like how the Beatles did a Let It Be, the naked version, where everything's kind of sort of stripped back, and a lot of the weirds that we were talking about sort of get taken out of that. I don't really know what it would take to do something like that, but it's a fun idea.
Yeah, and I think we'd kicked around possibly a deluxe version of Happiest Nuclear Winter also, with a lot of the kind of demos and different versions of the songs we were working on in that time period. We got a lot of that. I mean, I don't know how everyone else feels, but I could see that eventually
Yeah,
making its
that would be
way onto
cool.
to streaming.
That would be
I
cool
mean,
because a lot of that's yeah.
it does
Sorry.
us no good sitting on our hard drive. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like it should be out there for people that care can have it. Sure.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely makes sense. It's definitely a good path forward. Um, has there been discussion about anything else? I mean, you're all very busy guys. This is the thing, but
Yeah,
you're clearly enjoying
that's
each other's company. So, I mean,
yeah.
has it
It's been
sparked
cool
anything?
to reconnect with everyone and get this thing rolling and revisit that stuff. It's a lot of great memories and definitely the most fun that I ever had making music was with these guys. And so beyond what we've been doing, we haven't really had any talks about it. But like, if we wanted to do a show, maybe we should if these kids are down and available. But that's really the
Sure.
biggest thing is availability because we're all grown-ups with families and kids and responsibilities and stuff. So finding a window to make something like that happen is really the biggest challenge. But
Yeah,
it'll be
but I think
fun.
we're all down for that. Also too, I guess we failed to mention we are working on two brand new songs.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
wonderful.
yeah, so we're almost
Buried the
done with.
lead. We buried the lead. I didn't do my
Oh,
job
sorry.
enough
I
there.
thought
There
that
we
was
go, Michael. I
common.
love it.
I thought that was
I,
common knowledge, but maybe
I
just
forgot that.
between
Yeah.
the four of us. But yeah, we're in the mixing process, and there's two at least that we've been working on, and then all of us are capable of recording and mixing, producing our own stuff. So it wouldn't be difficult to release new stuff if we wanted to. But yeah, just got to see what works with everybody. But you can look forward to at least two new tunes coming out
Yeah.
soon.